And welcome to another episode of Love and Money Secrets TV. I'm your host, Dame Lillian Walker, and today we are going to continue reading the wonderful book called The Mitochondriac Manifesto by R.D. Hall. Fantastic. I'm sorry, R.D. Lee. I keep on wanting to call him R.D. Hall, but it's R.D. Lee, as indicated here. You can get this book on Amazon. This is not a sponsored video. I don't have an affiliate link. You just buy it on Amazon, just like I did. Just look it up and you'll find it. Okay, so we're going to continue on chapter 5, page 55. And let's see. So today we are starting at the section where it says mitochondrial coupling, which couples means pairs of twos, controls efficiency and ATP production, which you guys know is adenosine triphosphate, which when I was in undergraduate pre-med, they told us that ATP, another way to remember, because it's all the power inside a mitochondria, which is what fuels the entire body of the cell, which in turn fuels your entire body, your entire organism. So mitochondrial coupling efficiency explains why some people are born with a fast metabolism and have no trouble maintaining their weight, while others have a slow metabolism and tend to gain weight easily. A fair amount of its basis is rooted in where your ancestors came from, specifically the women in your family tree, because mitochondrial DNA is passed exclusively through the mom's side. Before modern times, people born closer to the equator didn't need to generate as much heat internally to maintain their body temperature. They also led more productive outdoor lifestyles in lots of sun. So their mitochondria made more ATP and less heat and waste. This type of mitochondria is described as being tightly coupled, referring to the spacing of the respiratory proteins. That means that there are proteins that are breathing, right? Which enables efficiency. Tightly coupled mitochondria expend a lower percentage of calorie consumption out of their ETC, which stands for electron train transport coefficient, as heat. On the other hand, people who lived in the colder northern climates gained a survival advantage when their mitochondrial DNA mutated to make more heat and less ATP. Their mitochondria leaked more protons out of the ETC to make heat. Those happy accidents survived to be passed on. We say their mitochondria are loosely coupled. Makes sense, because they're up in the northern plain where it's a lot colder, as opposed to closer to the equator, which it's much hotter, which equates to less ATP and more heat. Well, yeah, the farther north you are, the colder it is, so you're going to need a lot more heat, otherwise you'll freeze to death. These people have an advantage in losing weight and keeping it off because a higher percentage of their calorie consumption exits the ETC as heat rather than as ATP. So now, oh gosh, someone is trying to, oops, sorry about that, you guys. Someone's calling me on the computer. So now at face value, you'd expect this respiratory complex heteroplasmy. Just think about homoplasmy is the same. Hetero is different. So you have two different of the couple to weaken mitochondria. But to offset this effect, the release of in IR in the book is infrared. Heat condenses the water around the respiratory proteins, which helps maintain their efficiency so mitochondria don't go lame. Also important to note, nutrient extraction, like minerals, antioxidants, probiotics, moisture, content, fiber, happens at the gut level prior to ATP production. That's why loosely coupled people don't necessarily just eat more to make up for the drop in ATP. In reality, most of them probably feel compelled to change what they eat more than they change how much, because their mitochondria do operate better on fats and proteins than on carbs. Kind of makes sense. Again, the difference in coupling efficiency is defined by how expanded or condensed the respiratory complexes are. The closer the respiratory proteins of mitochondria are to each other, the easier it is for electrons to jump from one spot to the other. So people closer to the equator, it's tightly coupled. It's like really close, so they can jump from one to the other without much effort, without much energy. Whereas somebody who lives in the northern hemisphere, where it's a lot colder, it's loosely coupled, so the electrons have to jump a farther distance. So it says here, in reality, most of them probably feel compelled to change what they eat more than they change how much, because their mitochondria do operate better on fats and proteins as opposed to carbs. So people closer to the equator eat more carbs. People farther towards the northern longitudes of, let's say, Europe, eat more proteins and fats, because they're trying to keep warm, because it's a colder climate. So again, the difference in coupling efficiency is defined by how expanded or condensed the respiratory complexes are. The closer the respiratory proteins of the mitochondria are to each other, the easier it is for electrons to jump from one spot to the next, redox centers along the electron transport chain. ETC is the electron transport chain, which I mentioned earlier. Conversely, when respiratory proteins are more spread out, electrons can't move as easily, more heat escapes from the system, and ATP production drops. However, we all know body heat from metabolism goes up when you exercise, regardless of where your coupling efficiency started out or in its present state. One mechanism that mitochondria use to fine-tune their coupling efficiency is through the use of a protein called uncoupling protein 2. In the same way that a carburetor, this is speaking to you guys that are mechanics or that understand cars well, the same way that a carburetor adjusts an engine's fuel to air mixture, uncoupling protein 2 controls how much deuterium is allowed into the Krebs bicycle, not to be confused with the Krebs cycle, which is part of the Krebs bicycle. You see, deuterium stymies the enzymatic steps of metabolism. So by controlling efficiency of steps in the citric acid cycle and urea cycle, efficiency of metabolism is increased or decreased. That's how metabolic programming is designed to work anyway. So as we'll discuss further, excessive deuterium, so just so that you're clear, deuterium, water that's inside your body, is deuterium depleted. Water that you drink that's usually outside of your body has deuterium in it, and then once you drink it, your cells have to clear the deuterium so that the water intracellularly doesn't have deuterium. For those of you watching here, you may not know, you can buy deuterium depleted water. It's very expensive. A case of deuterium depleted water can run you $200 to $300 for a case of water, just to kind of give you an idea, as opposed to you get a case of water, pretty much any other water can run you anywhere from $7 to $30, depending on the type of water you're getting. So it is a big difference. So excessive deuterium fouls up energy production in mitochondria, which is why your body filters it out, takes out the deuterium. Interestingly enough, coupling efficiency can be traced back along your maternal lineage many tens of thousands of years to the migration patterns of your ancient ancestors. In fact, Dr. Doug Wallace, this is a big name, Dr. Doug Wallace, he's due to win the Franklin Award, which is the award that you win right before you get nominated for a Nobel Prize. And he did some incredible genetic testing on he's the one who discovered that you inherit your mother's mitochondria, none of your father's. Big distinction. Has traced mitochondrial lineages back 250,000 years to today's Central Africa, now called the L0 haplotype. Never heard of that before. Okay, so that takes us to page 57. We're at the 29-minute mark and we're at 7:35, so we're going to wrap it up here. When we return, we're going to come back to mitochondria haplotype. That's at the top of page 57. I hope you learned something new and exciting in this section, page 55 to 57. I want to thank you guys for tuning in, tapping in, turning on. If you have any questions, I want you to know that you can optimize your body as always. You can see here, I'm wearing this FDA, this is made in an FDA registered facility. And in Europe, it's registered with the Irish Medicine Board. It's ISO 9001, 13485 compliant. In Europe and the UK and in the States, it's FDA cleared. And it is a technology that will optimize your body so that you can unring the bell of any damage, and it's going to regenerate from the inside out, whatever it is that you've got going on that is unpleasant, that is dysregulated, that is not in good order, whether you've injured yourself or whether it's disease, you know, whatever type of condition or syndrome or whatever. We don't make any medical claims, but to learn more, if you would like, I'm going to make this available to you guys today. If you would like a personalized, unique URL to be sent to you with a presentation that will be tailored specifically to you, text me at 949-478-2221 and say, send me unique URL and on the patches, and I will do that for you. And other than that, ciao for now, my friends and gems. Thanks for tuning in, tapping in, turning on. Do share this with a friend. Hit the notification bell so you're notified the next time we do another Intuition Manifesto. Mitochondriac Manifesto read. And oh, you might want to check out the Intuition Manifesto on Amazon. That's the book that I wrote. I literally wrote the book on intuition. You might want to check it out. All right. Take care. Ciao for now. And make sure you come back and circle around. You'll be able to see us tomorrow at 12, 2, or 7. Actually, no, tomorrow's Friday, so we won't be here at 7, but we'll be here at 12 and at 2. These are the times for Pacific Mountain